Members of the platform party, honored guests and family, faculty and staff, and of course graduating students, it is with great pleasure that I introduce to this convocation our Honorary Bachelor of Applied Studies degree recipient, Mr. Russ Ford. Russ Ford is the Executive Director of LAMP Community Health Centre, a multi-service, community-based charitable organization that provides a range of programs and services. Having been the Executive Director for the past 14 years, Russ has provided leadership in guiding services that improve the physical, emotional, social, and economic well-being of people living in South Etobicoke. LAMP delivers programming for children, youth, families, and newcomers, in addition to providing numerous community support services. Simply put, LAMP is a place where people gather to improve the quality of their lives and the community. Russ holds bachelor degrees in social work and journalism and a master's degree in social policy from McMaster University. Through his work at LAMP, he has fought for funding to support programs that meet the needs of the city's most vulnerable and marginalized residents. He has advocated for an equity strategy that will build stronger neighborhoods and reduce inequities across the entire city. Russ's contributions to Humber reach across many programs in our school. Humber students in the School of Social and Community Services have been fortunate to hold a variety of field placements at LAMP. In addition, Russ has been a member of several program advisory committees, providing valuable input into the program development process. His engagement and ability to provide a community perspective to Humber has helped shape the direction of our programming to prepare our students to make a difference in their own communities. Through all of these experiences, it is clear that Russ Ford personifies the values and principles of the School of Social and Community Services. President Whitaker, Ms. McKinney, it is with great honor and pleasure that we ask you to confer upon Mr. Russ Ford the Bachelor of Applied Studies degree. I now invite Mr. Russ Ford to address the class of 2015.
Thank you, Gina, for those extremely kind words. This is certainly a great honor, but you know, getting a degree without getting a student debt, how cool is that, right? There is no charge for this, right? No, okay, good. Just wanted to be clear. This means an awful lot to me. And I was thinking about, there's actually one person who probably, if she were here, would mean more to than even me, and it means a lot to me, and that would be my mother. Because neither one of my parents had any real formal education. Both their fathers were casualties of World War I, and as soon as they could, they had to work, and besides, people from their income level didn't really go to post-secondary education in those days. But my mother knew the value of an education, and some of my earliest memories are of her telling me that I was going to go to university one day and become an engineer. Now, you have to understand that I didn't really know what kindergarten was at that point, but somehow I was going to university. Now, I was okay with the engineer part because I knew what an engineer was. That was a guy who drove a train, right? And he actually had a hat that went along with that. But later I found out that being an engineer involved doing math. It had very little to do with driving a train, and in fact, you didn't even get a hat, so I dropped out of engineering school long before I even came close to getting in. But being here today has brought back a number of memories from my own graduation. And my graduation, it was a very different time period. Our generation, we were going to change the world, and maybe you feel that way too. But there'd be no more war because we had effectively shut down the war in Vietnam. There wouldn't be any more racism because it was a period of great social change. In the US, they had the Civil Rights Act was passed not that much long before. But when I think about it today, ironically, I'm speaking to you on a day where Canada has troops in the Mideast, and in Toronto, the current debate is whether or not we will allow our police to continue to engage in systemic racism by carding black people. We haven't got that far. So we didn't meet our expectations. But that doesn't mean we were wrong to aim high. We were not wrong to envision a better world. We were not wrong to dream, but we really didn't actually get it done. So my challenge to you today, because my generation, I mean, we're looking at the 5 o'clock buffet and the happy hour. We're not, as engaged as we used to. We were off to Florida with our white belts, right? To accept your role. And your role is, as a future leader, you are among a minority of people who have a degree. You are the leaders of, it may not feel this way at this moment, but you are the future leaders of this country. So first stuff you have to do is you have to dream. You have to dream about what kind of a world you want. But then you have to go beyond that. And you should dream for personal goals for sure. But you also have to dream about the change that you want to create in our society. Because the system, the current system, doesn't work. It doesn't work for an increasing number of people. It doesn't work for most of the people who come to LAMP and use our services, and no doubt will not work for many of the people that you engage with when you become part of the employment market. The engineers, they're not going to be the authors of social change. They're too busy driving trains or whatever they do. It's not going to come from the MBAs either. They're too busy counting whatever they count. And it'll come from you. It will come from you because in your work you will see on a daily basis the change that we need. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, how can I change the world, right? No one can. And, we honor people like Gandhi and Martin Luther King and Julio Cesar Chavez for their work, and they definitely deserve our honor because those are people who really were at the forefront of change. But they were leaders, but none of them would have been anything had they not had followers. A leader is only good as they have followers. Let me tell you a story. I don't know how many of you have seen the movie Selma. How many? Hands up. This is the group participation part. How much? Come on. Okay, not that many actually. Okay, you should see it. Because one of the things that comes clear in the movie Selma is about the Martin Luther King's organization and how really small it really was. So back in 1963, that seemed before I graduated, the United States had the Civil Rights Act, which essentially allowed the federal government to control voting. So that meant that in the states that were denying blacks the right to vote, states would no longer have that right. It would be a federal thing. And the Civil Rights Act, as much as we may think that that's a no-brainer, wasn't going to pass because many members in the U.S. Congress, particularly from the South, were going to keep talking about it until the time ran out, the Senate would have been dismissed, or the Congress would have been dismissed, and it never would have passed. So Dr. King had this idea, and he said, we're going to have a march on Washington. We're going to show the people in Congress that the American people want this. And among his group, there was not one person who actually supported Dr. King in this idea. Mostly because it was such a small organization. How are we going to organize a national march? And then what if 20 people show up? If only 20 people show up, it's going to show there's not support. So they had no idea. But Dr. King said, well, I have faith. I have faith in the people of America that they will come and they will show those in power that this is unacceptable. So we all kind of know what happened until the first inauguration of President Obama. Martin Luther King's March on Washington was the largest single event in the history of that city. People came from everywhere, and not just black people, everybody. And I'm sure everybody in that who was on that trip had something else they could have done that day. Could have gone shopping, could have done anything, vacuuming, things I don't particularly do a lot of. But they came. They came because it was important to them. And change happens when people come together. Change happens but it's a long and difficult struggle. And everybody was there because they understand that things like the Civil Rights Act is not necessarily just a black issue. It is an issue for all of us because we are all dehumanized by those kinds of laws. So I've spent majority of my life working in human services, and many people who hold my job call themselves CEOs. I call myself a servant because, that's what I do. And that's what you'll be doing, and there is absolutely nothing more honorable than to serve people. It's very easy to get cynical. It's very easy to get caught up in the day-to-day work and lose that zest for change. But I got a solution. It's a two-part solution. And we're going to do it now. This is the group activity part, okay? All right. First off, I want you to commit yourself now that when you get out from Humber and you're in the workplace, that you will be an agent of change. Okay, everybody got that? Okay, so everybody who just committed themselves to doing that, I want you to stand up for a moment. All right. Whoa, I was worried nobody would stand up. Great. Okay, so what you are doing right now is you are publicly proclaiming that you are an agent of change. And what I'm doing right now is I'm memorizing all your faces, so if you ever come to LAMP for a job, I'll remind you of this. Okay, you can sit down. Now, the second part is that I want you to remember how you're feeling at this absolute moment. I hope you're feeling hopeful. I hope you're feeling ready to take on the world, because the world needs you to do that. So I'm going to give you a second, and I want you to put your thoughts together, okay? And then, when you've got your thoughts together, I want you to put them in your memory. And when I say memory, I'm not talking about a cell phone. I'm not talking about a stick. I'm talking about the old school memory, up here, right? Okay? We all got that? Okay. So now that it's in your memory, there will be times in your job, and I still have it, despite the fact how long I've been in the job, where you really start to wonder, are you making a difference? Are you really actually achieving anything? So there's a lot of self-doubt working in human services. And when you feel that way, I want you to pull that memory out. I want you to pull the memory out about when you committed to making change in this society. And that will get you through the day. That is the nourishment that you will need to make the change that my generation really only dreamed of. Thank you.